One tries, you know. Yes, one tries. I won't show you my tennis shorts that are on as well. No.
He's sitting in his boxers below the waistline.
Okay, Chairman, we're live on YouTube, so we're good to start the meeting.
No worries, thanks a lot. Sorry, just bear with me a little bit. Right, so good morning all.
Morning.
A bit dull and overcast today, so I apologise. I don't have any control over the weather, unfortunately. So welcome to the Pension Committee of Friday the 24th of July 2020. To start off, we have apologies for non-attendance from Robert Austin and Janet Blunden. No substitutes have been advised. There's no notifications received from members of the public to speak. Declarations of members' interests, as per normal. Committee members are asked to note that under the Code of Conduct, they only need to declare an interest at the start of a meeting if that interest has not been recorded in the Register of Interest previously. If any councillor declares such an interest, they must add it to the register within 28 days of this meeting. Committee members should be reminded of the seriousness of not declaring a disclosable pecuniary interest. If a councillor declares such an interest, they must remove him or herself for the whole of the item, irrespective of whether they are a member of the committee or not. When declaring an interest, committee members are asked to state the item number in which they have an interest, the nature of the interest, and whether the interest is a disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory interest. Moving on to item 4, the chairman's announcements. So today we have a few items that cross over from public to private sessions. So with this in mind, we intend to cover off all the public items first, and then at the end, we will go into private session to cover and discuss the non-public items, if that's okay with the committee today.
Yeah.
I'd also like to wish and thank the members for our continued patience and cooperation in getting used to this very new way of working in these unprecedented circumstances. And I have to say, I think that it's been working very well. It's been excellent, and we've cut across between Zoom and Teams, and I think they've been very good, personally. I would also like to reiterate that the collaborative and inclusive approach to meetings that we have, and we still fully encourage all members to have the opportunity to question and contribute to the discussions accordingly. So as per our in face-to-face meetings, please feel free to ask questions or verification on items, but respect the speaker and the presenters during their presentations. But as previously, there is no need to come through the chair. I'm quite happy for you to just, if you've got a query or a question to ask, just to ask it. And James Edmonds will also be monitoring the chat room as well if you have any questions or you wish to speak, and you put that into the chat line. The meeting is being webcast live to reflect the requirements and regulations regarding remote meetings. And I have sent, on behalf of this committee, letters of thanks and appreciation to our officers and fund managers previously. But I would like to take this opportunity to actually pass on our gratitude again to our officers and our investment fund managers for their, I would say, their indefatigable way of ensuring that the daily business of running the Northamptonshire Pension Fund, along in conjunction with the Cambridge team, to ensure that the pension fund is in excellent health, and that's despite the current COVID-19 epidemic, which is global. So I think I'd like to have that minuted to show our committee's full appreciation of the hard work that they're continuing to do behind the scenes. And don't forget, majority of all their meetings are also virtual as well. So the work behind there is not to be taken lightly, shall I say. So if the committee's okay with that, I'd like to put that in the minutes.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed.
So moving on to item 5A.
No,
There is me. I did do it, but then I forgot to turn my iPad off, so I do apologise. Which I have done now. So 5A, minutes of the Pensions Committee meeting held in public on the 19th of June 2020. And I'd like to invite the committee to approve the public minutes. I think the way that we'll go for this one is if you are in agreement, do nothing. But if you're not in agreement or you abstain, please do so in the chat. In the chat room. Is that okay, James?
Mr. Chairman, can I just raise a quick point? On the attendees, I'm down as being a representative of Northampton College, which is a completely different body from the University of Northampton. Do you mind if that's amended, please?
We'll amend that accordingly.
Thank you.
I've got a point, Mr. Chairman, and it also applies to the other Richard. We're down as Northamptonshire County Council as opposed to district and boroughs. That's the two Richards, Lewis and Picklewright.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, then we'll, James, if we can pick them up and get them amended accordingly. So if there's no one else has got any other queries or questions, like I said, if you just assent, if you do not, if you don't agree and you wish to abstain, just put that into the chat thing, but also indicate verbally.
Chair, yeah, sorry, Chair. Could I ask that members indicate verbally rather than using the chat function, because there can be a greater risk of that being missed. So certainly if members want to speak during the meeting, or as you said, if they were to indicate a position on a decision, if they could indicate that on screen rather than using the chat function.
Okay, then did everyone understand that?
yeah,
Not entirely. No.
Yeah.
So I take it that we're all in agreement of item 5A.
Agreed.
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 Sorry, for item 5B, minutes of the Pensions Committee held in private session on the 19th of June 2020. I also invite the committee to approve the minutes. If you do not approve, please indicate accordingly.
The same comment about Northamptonshire County Council and districts and boroughs.
I think what we'll do, Richard, there is we'll pick them up across the board if there's any, if that's reciprocated in other areas as well. So we'll pick them all up. So
Thanks.
Okay, there's nobody against and no abstentions then, so that's passed. Item 6 is the action log from the Pensions Committee meeting held on the 19th of June 2020. And I'd like to invite Joe Walton, our Governance and Regulations Manager, to introduce this item. And likewise, if you have any questions as you go, please feel free just to indicate and ask away.
I think that's a mistake on the agenda. That shouldn't be on there. There's no action log in this meeting pack.
Okay, then. Scrap the item 6 then. Thank you, Joe. Item 7, annual report statement of accounts. It's Ben Barlow's section, Pension Services Financial Manager, to present the report. Ben.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I have the pleasure of this one. Well, I'll start off by directing you to page 14 in your packs, if I can, which is the covering report. And just to give you a sort of whistle-stop tour of what is in these accounts, I'll just go through the highlights. So there's been a net decrease for the year of 96.5 million, with the fund's net assets falling to just over 2.4 billion. I know Hyman's are going to be going over performance, and we'll cover sort of the recovery later, I believe, in the meeting. Contributions receipts have increased slightly from 107 million to 112 million, which is what we'd expect in line with membership. Benefits payments have also increased up to 94 million or 94.4 million from 89.7 million. Again, as expected, that is in line with the pensioner increase. Admin expenses is a slightly more interesting story. I'll show you the fund account itself. When you see it on the fund account, it looks like it's just gone up slightly and there's no real story there. When you break it down across administration, investments and governance costs, it's a slightly more interesting story, but I'll come to that when we look at the fund account itself. 1 year investment return was a net market loss of 95.9 million. To put some context around that, that's a 4.7% decrease. The actual weighted benchmark was a 4.5% decrease. Investment income has decreased from 45 million to 41.1 million. So if you bear those points in mind, and I can move you to page 19 in the pack, which is page 1 of the actual fund account itself. You'll see the headlines that are in the statement of accounts. And then on the right-hand side, you've got the notes. So the notes break down these numbers into more detail. But these are the headlines, really. So contributions, like we said, have gone up. Transfers, they're a kind of demand-led issue, really. So what happens in year happens, really. Same with payments too. Most of that is transfers out. So there's no really changes in those massively. Benefits, we've said, have gone up in line with membership. Management expenses. So if I can ask you to turn to page 28, you'll see the detail, which is note 11 behind these. Page 28 in your packs. If I can just get there. So my 2-year-old daughter has done her best to scribble all over my notes, which is great.
Did it make more sense?
Yeah, they do actually. Yeah. So you can see on the management expenses, administration costs appear to have gone down. That's because in 18-19 there was quite a large write-off that was done, which has gone through audit and has been okayed and everything. That's why on the face of it, it looks like it's gone down. Why in my covering report, I've put in a little bit more detail to show what it is in real terms, which is it's not too strange. Investment expenses have gone up. That is because we've had a move to more alternatives, which are a more costly product from some equities. And oversight and governance has also gone up a bit, and that's because of the projects that we've done over the years, such as GMP, McLeod, some investigations around unfunded and that sort of thing. Without going into major detail, I think it's probably best if I just open up to questions, comments and thoughts. Fiona Coates has joined me from my team, so hopefully between us, if I can understand my notes that my daughter scribbled all over, we can answer most of your questions here. If not, we'll take them away and answer them before a final draft. I will also say audit should sort of start picking up pace from next week, hopefully, now that NCC have managed to sign, or we've had last year's accounts, sort of the signing of those are imminent now. So there's been a slight delay on the audit up till now, but we should be picking up with that from next week, hopefully. So I would hope a pension committee soon I'll be able to bring you final draft, the accounting report and the annual report as well, which just gives a little bit more background to what's in the statement of accounts. I'm happy to open up for questions though. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. So members, if anybody has any questions or areas for to discuss, then please feel free to speak.
Could I ask, Chair, on the same page, on page 28, I noticed from the benefits that the lump sum death benefit has gone up over 50%, but the other benefits don't seem to have risen hardly at all. I just wondered if there was some easy explanation for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a big jump percentage-wise. Number-wise, I wouldn't say it's too much to expect. I mean, the lump sum depends upon the person and how much they've decided to take. So you could argue it's demand-led, but it depends on who it is who's taking their lump sum and how they wish to take it, whether they want to take a larger amount and spread something out over the benefits or to do it another way. And obviously how much that particular pensioner is getting paid based on when they want to take their retirement will mean how much.
I think, Ben, these are death benefits
Yeah.
that the member's referring to.
Yes.
Yes,
it's-
yeah.
I was going to say,
Yes,
yes, then I thought, no, how can you draw down something if you died?
No, sorry, yes.
So this is, I mean, obviously it depends on whether it's a death from a pensioner where there's effectively a 10-year guarantee, or a death in service, which can be extremely high in value. So it doesn't take many death in services to skew these numbers significantly from year to year. So it is just the how high these benefits can reach in terms of 3 times salary effectively.
So there's been no change in policy or anything. It's just the numbers that have come through.
It's just
It's just what's
statutory.
happened in
Yeah.
the year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a statutory benefit, so we have no discretion over the value.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Looking at page 28, the total investment income, as has been mentioned by Ben, was it, has gone from just under 45 million down to 41 million. Yet in note 12, performance-related management fees have gone up from 804,000 to 1.3 million. Could someone explain that apparent contradiction?
Yeah, I know you're all right with that one.
Yep. So performance management fees, we've received, 1 second. So our alternative managers have some performance manager fees which they charge during the year, but for the investment income from equities, you can see the largest decrease there. So that's where we've disinvested in UBS UK equities and Newton throughout the year, where they've moved to the pooled funds. And you can see from private equity and infrastructure income, there's not income that we receive much from private equity. It's normally distributions which affect the market value of the fund.
Yeah, you see where I'm coming from. We seem to be paying more performance management fees to get less out.
Can I help here, perhaps? Performance fees are not necessarily aligned in time. You earn, they accrue them, and then they're paid in the future. So it doesn't necessarily mean this year's activity reflects the payment of performance fees. And Fiona's absolutely correct that we've been moving our asset allocation around, and therefore the profile of income will be significantly different. Private equity is a 12 to 14 year profile before you really start to get your income back, while equities of course is dividends that you receive in year. So it's a different profile, Richard. It's a significantly different arrangement,
And it's those alternatives that cost a little bit more that we've started to do more of.
yes.
Thank you for
That's
that.
true as well, absolutely.
One
Yes.
thing I can just add to that, I don't think this is totally captured because of obviously the cut off on the end of March, but one thing to bear in mind, I think UK equity dividends have been cut by something like 2/3 over this period. So investment income, which is what we're talking about, is something that may suffer sort of over the balance of this year as well. It's worth bearing in mind that there's been a lot of dividend cuts.
I guess also though, obviously performance isn't just income, it's also capital growth. So just, you may have a very high performing manager who delivers little in terms of income, but the growth and the capital will be significant. So therefore
completely separate. I mean, you can have a very low yielding fund that is performing extremely well and generating performance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, I concede defeat.
Does anybody else have any questions or queries that they'd like to be answered? No, so I'd like to take this opportunity to invite the committee to note the statement of accounts, and please indicate if you abstain or you do not agree with them accordingly. But I think we all, I note them, agree.
Could we have a verbal assent from members?
Yes, agreed.
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 Thank you all.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Moving on to item 8 then, the governance and compliance report. I think this is Joe's. Have you got something on this one, Joe, for us today, please?
Yes. Okay, so this report is rather thicker and longer than most normally, because we haven't presented this report to you since December due to the meeting in March being postponed. So what we have here is just an overview of what's been going on in the world of governance and compliance over the last few months. I'll run through it briefly. I've got something to add to the McLeod section, but I'll just go through the other items very quickly. So within the report, there's an update on the responsible investment guidance issued by MHCLG. The Supreme Court decision on the LGPS investment guidance, that's come to a conclusion. I'm happy to take questions on these at the end. And then we have the good governance review, just an update on this, but not a lot has happened or that we've seen as funds since we last spoke about this. You'll remember I did a presentation at one of the information training days back in March. I'm sure something will come out from that soon. Then within the report also, I have detailed the various responses from the likes of the pensions regulator and the pensions ombudsman with regards to the coronavirus. So moving on to the important bit, which is McLeod in section 6.2. Last Thursday afternoon, the consultation that we've been waiting for from MHCLG was launched. It's a 69-page consultation, which you might be able to see here. Unfortunately, I've been on leave for quite a bit of the time since that's been released, so I haven't been able to read it all in detail. But I'm sure there'll be information coming up very shortly through various different sources to that. With regards to the consultation, it addresses the regulation changes that are required to address the age discrimination that's occurred because of the underpin that was applied to members who were older members of the scheme, 10 years from retirement. So that's gone away now. And this deals with the changes needed to make to the scheme to make it fair in terms of age discrimination. What we will do, we will compile a response to that consultation. The closing date is before the next Pensions Committee meeting, so we will be circulating our intended response to the committee for your approval before we submit that back to MHCLG. So what I would also like to mention also is the cost cap mechanism that's used to make sure the scheme is costing the right amount of money, which is 19.5% of pensionable pay. That process has been on pause since the McLeod case first arose, but we've now heard in the last week that that's now back in play. What that will mean is that because the scheme was more than 2% under 19.5% value, that scheme design needed to be changed, and that was back several years ago now, and that's been on pause for several years. Now this process will restart again, and amendments will be made to the scheme design to make sure the cost of the scheme is back to that 19.5% that's stated in the Pension Service Pensions Act 2013. So that's coupled with the review to amend members' benefits in terms of those changes and backdate them. So that, along with the McLeod amendments, is going to look like a very big piece of work for us coming up in the next couple of years or so. As yet, we don't know about any timescales to complete this work, but it's looking like the McLeod work won't start until April 21, which isn't actually that far away. So I think you may have come across in the press some stories that have been written about the McLeod remedy and how much it's going to be costing taxpayers. At this point, I know Douglas has got some very good stats on this, so I might call Douglas in, if that's okay, Douglas, to sort of give an update from an actuarial point of view as to the cost of McLeod.
Yes, that's fine. If that's okay, Mr. Chairman. The figure you might have seen in some of the press is a figure of £17 billion, which is the cost of the government having to change the benefit structure for the unfunded pension schemes. That's like NHS, teachers, civil servants, and so on. These are the ones that are in essence paid directly from government revenue. And the cost of amending the benefits so that they meet the age discrimination requirements, that's always either no change or an improvement. It's never a reduction. So there's always going to be a cost. And spread across all those teachers and doctors and nurses and civil servants. That adds up to something like £17 billion. The local government pension scheme, though, is different because across the 87 funds in England and Wales, each fund, such as a North Hampshire fund, you actually have the assets available to pay benefits. So it's accounted for differently. The government actuary's assessment was that across the LGPS as a whole, across all of the 87 funds, that cost might be about £2.5 billion. But we thought that there was the assumption, one or two of the assumptions they made were maybe a little bit out of line with realistic expectations. We think the cost might be more like £500 million, so markedly less than the GAD assessment. So that's £500 million, but across all 89 funds in England and Wales. So the impact at whole fund level for an individual fund such as a North Hampshire fund will be relatively low. But the key thing to bear in mind here is that the impact is very lumpy and it will affect some employers more than others. So the impact on councils, for instance, is likely to be pretty minor. If anything, it might be 0.2%, 0.3% onto contributions in the long run. But the impact on some employers who've got more active members, more younger members, such as leisure centres and academies, that will affect them more. And you might be talking about an impact of maybe 1% of pay, something of that order on those employers. Now, I must stress, we're not proposing that there's any change to anybody's contributions before the next valuation anyway. So we'll just keep an eye on this. And as Joe says, for the consultation to come out, the benefit changes to be finalised next year, and we'll be able to apply some more rigorous costings after that.
Thank you.
Happy to take any questions, but otherwise, back to Joe.
Members have any questions? No, carry on then, Joe, sorry.
Well, that really reaches the end of my report, the things I wanted to talk about. So happy to take any questions of any items in the report.
No. So, okay then, so we'd like members to note the attention of Appendix 1 of the report. It's exempt from publication under paragraph 3, part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act. So we'll all go with that one. No questions are being raised. Sorry, hang on, I've gone into the private one then. We're not in the private one yet, are we? So I think just note this section of Joe's report, because part of this section will go into private session. Is that right, James?
Through you, Chair, I think it'd be worth asking if members have any questions on the private section.
Okay, then, yeah, that's a good idea.
If there are none, then there's no need to go into private session on this item at all.
No, I'll take that one on board. So, members, do you have any questions on, well, you've already not indicated any questions on Joe's report that she's presented, but are there any questions on the private section of this report? No. Okay, then, so based on the fact that nobody has any questions, any further questions on this report, then I will invite the members to note this report as delivered. Is everybody, can everybody assent in verbally, please? If you do not assent and you abstain, please indicate.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, I think we'll say that's been agreed. So if we're happy, we'll move on to item 9 then. Again, it's with you, Joanne. If you'd like to present the report to the members, please.
Thank you. Again, yes, this is one of our regular reports that we bring to you. We haven't brought it to you since December, so it's covering a larger amount of months than previously that we've brought to you. So I'll run through the report in order. Firstly, we have the section 2 variances against the forecast of investments and administration expenses, and that's detailed in Appendix 1. And in section 3, we have the key performance indicators for the period 1st of November 2019 to 31st of May 2020. That's Appendix 2. And turning to Appendix 2 on page 81 of your packs, 282, you'll see that this period covers the reporting period covers the period of lockdown. and the start of working from home. And as you'll see from the statistics, that our performance hasn't really suffered due to officers working from home, and that we've managed to largely achieve the standard required on our performance indicators. So that's good news. Moving on to section 4 of the report, receipt of employee and employer contributions. Appendix 3 shows on page 83, shows the percentage of employers that have paid on time or paid late, and if they've submitted their schedule on time or late. As you'll see again, during the period of lockdown, everything's been largely okay and not particularly out of the normal, so that's good to hear. What we have is private appendix 4, which shows the names of the late paying employers. Obviously, I won't talk about that in any detail at this precise moment because it's a private paper. But if there's any questions on that, I'm happy to take them in the private session. Section 5 of this report is the breaches of the law section of the report. So here we have detailed to you breaches of the law that have occurred in the administration and governance of the scheme during the period 1st of January to 31st of May 2020. As you'll see in table in 5.2, we've had no material breaches that we as officers have deemed material that we've needed to report to the pensions regulator. But we have a number of non-material breaches that we don't feel that the pensions regulator know about. We record them on an internal breach log as is required by the pensions regulator, but we haven't reported them because we've got on top of them and put in place processes to ensure they don't happen again. I should point out that as members of the pension committee, you're well within your rights to take a different view as our advisors to the scheme. And that's covered in our reporting breaches of the law to the pensions regulator policy that we have in place. But as officers, we feel that we are safe to say that these are non-material breaches.
Can I just jump in then, Joe? Then can I just ask the members, are they okay with that decision by our officers to continue the same practice ongoing, and that we don't really need to get involved with that at this stage? If everyone's in agreement with that, just please agree in the usual manner.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Chairman, can I just ask Jo a very simple question? She doesn't need to go into any detail on this. When we're talking about late payers in terms of the fund managers, is there any particular organisation which historically has always been we've had problems with, or is it just a one-off situation mainly?
When you say fund managers, do you mean employers?
Sorry,
yeah, that's what I meant.
We tend to have, it's the smaller employers that have recently onboarded within the scheme that seem to be our most sort of problem category. It's where they have sort of very small numbers of staff, no cover when there's annual leave or sickness. So that tends to be where the late payers tend to come from, rather than the big organisations like the county council or the boroughs or the districts. So it's normally only very few, very small employers affecting very few members, and nothing that would affect the cash flow of the fund.
Yeah, I can also add as well, normally once we've actually spoken to these people, if they've missed the first payment, they usually fall into line. So it's usually once we communicate with them, it's a misunderstanding and things are on track again.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Getting back to your breaches then, Joe, the committee members are quite happy that you continue in the process that you're using now, and that you're addressing the situations that they don't need to go to the relevant body, but just keep in mind and just keep us informed as it goes along. That's all we require. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. So section 6 of the report is where we disclose to you the internal dispute resolution procedure cases that are ongoing. That's our formal complaint process. As you'll see from table in 6.2, which goes over page 74 to 75, there are a number of cases ongoing. I will have completed within this time period covered by the report. So that there are lengthy cases to resolve. They can go on for quite a while, particularly when the pensions ombudsman gets involved, because they have no timelines within which they need to respond or resolve a case. So, but I don't think this is a bad reflection of the scheme. Sometimes these IDRPs can be on the matter of the scheme regulations rather than maladministration. So To have no IDRPs would be lovely, but it's not realistic in the world that we are in. Next item is data improvement, section 7. So we have an update on how the unprocessed leaver records are being processed at the rate at which they are, and the table in 7.1 gives you the current figure on that. 7.2 is a contracted out liabilities rectification project that's been ongoing for many years. We have now received the final file of data that HMRC was due to issue by the end of last year, but it has now been received. Has a number of errors in the data, which is a bit unfortunate, which HMRC don't intend to fix. So we will need to use a different resource to make sure that we're using and working on the right data for when we're rectifying members' benefits. Section 8 of the report is a quick update on the...
Sorry, Joe, can I just... So items 6 and 7, I noticed that a lot of this is sort of like pre-April, so there's not a lot there post May, June, July. How is the current situation, the COVID situation, having any impact on completing the procedures laid out in 6 and 7?
So with the IDRP cases, we are under very fixed timescales to respond to those, and which aren't really negotiable. So we have been dealing with those as a priority, as we always do. The Pensions Ombudsman obviously has no timescale, so they can take as long as they like. For a while, they weren't taking on new cases, but they are now. With regards to section 7, which is data improvement carried out by officers of the fund, that has been proceeding. We outsource some of the activity in item number 7.1 to Aon, who have been carrying on as normal as well. I assume that they've been working from home as we have. So none of these activities have really been affected. Certainly from our angle, we've been continuing as business as usual. There is no casework affecting members that we've put on hold. So it's business as usual, really.
That's good. Good to hear. Thank you.
So section 8 was just a summary of the employers that have been admitted and have ceased membership of the North Hampshire Pension Fund during the time period as well. That concludes my report, so happy to take any questions.
Okay, members, do you have any questions or areas of clarification that you wish for Joe to answer, or Joe and her team to answer?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Richard.
Good. Yeah, well, I think it's congratulations to the staff, first of all, as you mentioned, for carrying on. You can't actually see the join, can you, really, when COVID struck? But you did briefly mention in 7.2, HMRC have announced the final file of data will contain some incorrect information which they will not be fixing. I mean, what are the ramifications for you on sorting that one out?
Yeah, it's not ideal. What we have, we've outsourced this project to ITM, and we've just paid them just an extra tiny bit of money to run a comparison against the data received from HMRC against the data held, ironically, on the HMRC website, which is correct. Why HMRC couldn't do that, I don't know. But yeah, it has cost us a bit of money to make sure that that's right. But this is HMRC, and there's not a lot of arguing with them, I'm afraid.
But it doesn't give you an awful lot of extra work to do because of it.
No, it's pretty much an automated process. So it's just comparing two sets of data and making sure we're using the one that's right. But it's a bit inconvenient and disappointing, given how long we've waited for the data.
Thanks very much.
HMRC doesn't change much then?
No.
Nor does the DWP, I think. Okay, so if there's no other questions or queries, then I would like. Oh, do you have? Does the members have any queries on the documents that will go into private session? I think we can cover that one off as well. So if there's any questions or queries or clarifications required on the private session documents, can you indicate, please? Okay, so I take that as a no. So I'd like to invite the committee to note the report as presented by Joe Walton. I agree.
Agreed.
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 Okay, thank you very much. Well, entering into a break, but I don't think we need a break. Does anybody need a comfort break?
No.
No, just carry on.
No. Okay, well, I think now is the time that, is it James, that we will be moving into private session.
Yes.
So what we'll do is if anyone would just like to stretch their legs while James is clearing the public gallery, so to speak, albeit virtual, you can stay, obviously stay online, please, whilst James carries that one out, and then we'll reconvene when James gives us the nod. It's all okay. Thank you. Thank you, James.
Chair, you do need to move the formal resolution, please.
All right, sorry, yeah. Members, we're going to enter private session now. So under Section 100 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public has been will be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that if the public were present, it would likely that exempt information in the paragraph 3 of Part 1 of the Schedule 12A to the Act would be disclosed to them. So if that's, let's take the opportunity to hand back to you, James, to carry out your duties, so to speak.